Hello again and welcome back to some climbing news. Not all that much stuff going on in the climbing world that we haven't already talked about or that isn't a published YouTube video. So to that end, we have quite a few of those to talk about, including Ondra's flash of Lexicon E11, some of my thoughts on the Mellow rock games, and Hamish Macarthur's Megatron V17 video, a couple other things, but yeah, with all that being said, sit back, relax, enjoy a few minutes of me throwing my opinions in your face. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love me doing that. Yeah, man, let's do this. And starting us off today with Billy Ridal, who has sent Rhapsody E11, one of the UK's hardest trad routes, and an old Dave McLeod FA, because of course it is. What hasn't he done that's not hard? Now, Billy apparently snapped a nut while falling before his red point go, a sentence which, if you're not a climber, you know, how do I explain to the YouTube algorithm that snapping a nut is not, you know what, never mind. Look, he fell. A nut that he'd placed and which he thought might have been damaged broke, and so he fell farther than he otherwise would have. It's terrifying. This is why I don't trad climb. But anyways, I guess Billy decided that broken nuts weren't a big deal, and so he went to Glasgow to buy some more, and the next morning he put the bigger one in the crack, followed it by his second, smaller backup, and then he stuck his fingers in there nice and deep like and made it all the way to the top. I hate everything about what this stupid sport just made me say. What the you know, alright, innuendos notwithstanding, great job to Billy Ridal for getting on Dave's crack. Shut up. Okay, I'm done. For managing to send Rhapsody relatively quickly. And in the summer heat too, must have made things a lot greasier. God damn it. Harder. No! I'm gonna move on. He said cameras were rolling, so I'm assuming there will be some sort of footage all over the place. He said there will be some sort of footage of all of this, but given the way I just described it, maybe no one will want to see that. You know, or maybe people will. I don't know. I'm not here to shame or judge. I'm just doing the news in a very judgy way. Billy's a good-looking dude, I guess. I don't know. What is happening? Moving on. To another E11, one that was flashed by Ondra. That's right, the video of Ondra's flash of Lexicon dropped just a few days ago on the Mammoth channel, and honestly, it's a pretty good one. I really liked it. There's something about Ondra, like his love for climbing is really freaking infectious. Even apparently kinda likes bouldering. But yeah, so I don't think there was any real question whether Ondra would be physically strong enough to flash this thing. Neil Gresham, who did the FA, says it's about 3 hard 7B boulders in a row. And we're talking about a guy who's been pretty consistently flashing AB plus boulders. Ondra, not Neil Gresham. Like that stuff, you know, 7 grades harder, 6 grades if you're using the Waco scale, right? V8 to V14. Like, yeah, it should be easy for him. But then there's the mental aspect. I mean, he's flashing the gear placement and he's just absolutely raw now. Like, he's way above his gear. It's basically free soloing. And I don't know about you, but me personally, when something is high off the deck, it feels like, you know, 3 or 4 grades harder. You're over gripping. In Ondra's case, you've never done the move, so you're not sure whether you're really supposed to go. Maybe he forgets a sequence. Maybe he thinks another foot works better for him, and then it turns out it doesn't. There's a moment in the video where that seems to happen. Like, at that point, E11 has to be very much below your flash grade in terms of pure difficulty for the mind to not really get in the way all that much. I don't know. I'm just trying to say I'm insanely impressed by this send. It's crazy to me, and honestly just goes to show that no matter how good you think you are, someone's always going to be able to come in and flash your project. Like a couple years ago, I was a lot stronger than I am now. I was climbing 8A on the kilter board, thought I was hot shit, and then one day Jorge Diaz came into the gym and campused my project. So, you know, I'm fine. I'm not fine. It was sad. It was horrible. I didn't like it. I liked it a little bit. I didn't like it. Anyways, and then, just in case you missed it, another Wheel Rock video came out. This time, Ben and Noah Wheeler are joined by Sean Hutches McCallum, a guy who, if you don't know, is kind of becoming like the ravioli biceps of the tension board. Unless there was already a ravioli biceps of the tension board and I just didn't know it yet. By that I mean, dude's done like the board. He's got videos of him doing all of the tension 2s, double-digit classics on the spray and mirror versions, which is just crazy to me if you can find them on his channel. I'll link it down in the description if you want to see some really hard climbing on a board. And just kind of an explanation of what the hell I was saying if you're new to climbing, but Ravioli Biceps is the username of a guy whose actual name I don't know, but who became famous for doing all of the benchmarks for every single grade on the moonboard, which is extremely freaking hard to do, especially given that he wasn't a pro climber either, or at least he wasn't known at all back then. I'll link to his Instagram down there too, just in case. It's mostly moonboard content, but if you want to check it out, definitely recommend. Anyways, I find climbing content can be kind of boring. What makes it fun and interesting in general is personality and story, and the Wheeler brothers are just really freaking fun to watch. They're honestly great vibes, so go check them out if you haven't. It's good stuff. And I mean, you know, tension board, dude, what's not to like? Speaking of which, a new Tension Board Lords episode dropped, and again, this is probably my favorite climbing series on the internet. It took me a while to really understand why, because I generally don't tend to care about indoor content as much as I do about outdoorsy stuff, but I'm realizing the reason this works for me as much as it does is now I have a tension board readily available to me and I know all the holds, so it's made putting into perspective how ridiculously difficult these climbs are very, very easy. Like, I don't know about you, but again, a lot of the times whenever I watch some of the hardest boulders in the world, hardest climbs in the world, like as much as they zoom in on the holes, the people climbing them make the moves and everything look so easy that I'm just like fully convinced that I could absolutely do them too. Nothing in this world is ever going to convince me that I couldn't rock up to silence and flash it. But, you know, other than trying to rock up to silence and flashing it. With these Tension Board 2 videos, I mean, these people are one-arming crimps at 55 degrees that I'm struggling to stay on at 40. It just really kind of shows just how much better some people are at this sport than me, and you, and a lot of others, and it's freaking awesome. So yeah, I don't know, maybe someone out there feels the same way I do, possibly. Love to know your thoughts. Anyways, this latest episode was just quality stuff. Features more of Sean Hutchins McCallum, Noah Wheeler, and Hamish Macarthur, all doing just, I mean, absurd things. Especially Hamish. He really went hard. I don't want to spoil anything, but just go watch it if you haven't. And then, speaking of Hamish Macarthur, gotta talk about his whole Megatron video, which personally, not a fan. Look, I think anyone that's been watching this channel for a while might tell you that my personal philosophy about climbing is that it's really just not that serious. To me, this sport is a completely meaningless pursuit that just exists for its own sake. However, I do strongly believe that one of the things that makes it beautiful is the fact that it can and should mean different things to different people. Call it the old existentialist idea of climbing. Meaning is not inherent, it's attributed by humans through their humanness. So while I disagree with Hamish and his spiritual take on this sport, I will and have to defend his right both to believe what he does and to create art that centers around those beliefs, which is exactly why this video just rubbed me in all kinds of wrong ways, because to be honest, I mean, it just read to me like a letter to the haters. And look, Hamish, on the off chance that you're watching this, you don't have to justify your opinions to anyone. So, you know, just don't. I don't need a badly written poem in a video that seemingly only exists in order to explain a badly written poem in an Instagram post. And I say that not as someone who's trying to give Hamish crap for any of the stuff that he's done, but as someone trying to offer at least something of a good faith critique. I think it's commendable that he's putting his work out there, especially when we're talking about a community that is extremely closed-minded about anyone doing anything other than climbing. I mean, just look at all the unnecessary hate Margot Hayes has gotten for her absolutely horrible crime of making music. Like, I'm not a fan of the stuff that she's making at all, but I think it's great that she's doing it, you know, like good for her. The same with Hamish. His poetry is kind of lacking in my opinion, but I actually do kind of like some of his paintings. And look, just because I feel like someone somewhere is gonna give me shit for saying that these poems aren't super well written, I'll give a few examples as to why. I mean, I'd be happy to go through the whole thing, but that's just gonna take forever. So I'm not gonna. But look, the big issue with the writing in the Megatron video is one that happens to a lot of relatively newer writers when they try to elevate what they're saying. There's a loss of control and precision that comes with doing that. I'm not talking about the big picture stuff. This is not an opinion on whether or not the substance of the poem is, quote, I'm 14 and this is deep, or whether it's cringe. This is a critique of the writing itself, or at least it's trying to be. Like the line, quote, notice the texture of the rock and the harm of its crystalline indifference. So in this case, you know he's trying to say that the rock itself is indifferent, but the way the sentence is worded, indifference actually modifies crystalline. And so we have a bit of a grammatical problem because indifferent crystalline is not the thing causing the harm to his skin. It's presumably the rock that is doing so, which is not great. Another example of bad writing can be found in the line, quote, feel the expanse of fractal detail unfolding beneath your skin, unquote. It's another sentence that I have a ton of problems with, but just to kind of save time, the issue that most jumps out at me is the fact that fractals are by definition details. So the use of fractal details is kind of redundant. And these aren't necessarily isolated issues. Pretty much the whole poem or script or video thing is kind of rife with stuff like this. He uses personification at one point to describe the leaves and the wind, but doesn't seem to consider how doing so contradicts his, I guess, thesis that these things are not moving and just exist. Of course, he says in the poem that he realizes that they are not doing so, but he doesn't really address the use of breathing and dancing, the personification, something that would have made that little section a lot stronger, at least in my opinion. Anyways, back to climbing. This video is a great attempt at something new. I mean, it's hard for climbing content to not become repetitive because it kind of just is super repetitive by nature, so it is a breath of fresh air, at least kinda, no pun intended. Like, I thought this was more entertaining than yet another run-of-the-mill video, and it's got people talking, which is also kind of cool. I do have a problem with this being in the Mellow Rock games, though. Because, yeah, let's talk about the Mellow Rock games. We're at the finals, and I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty disappointing, to be honest. I mean, 3 of the finalists, they're basically just normal Mellow videos, or at least videos that would have been featured on Mellow regardless of whether or not there was a competition in the first place. I'm talking about Hamish Macarthur's Send of Megatron, Clément Lechaptois' Send of Permanent Midnight Low, 8C+/V16, and David Fitzgerald's Last Line of Defense. And maybe this is just the case that I didn't understand what the point of the contest was, but I mean, come on, man. Was highlighting people who are already pretty well known, who have sponsors in their videos too, like, was that part of the contest? Like, maybe it's just me, but Louder Than 11, one of the climbing world's most high-profile production studios who do this stuff full-time and have actual budgets for shooting, maybe, just maybe, they shouldn't have been allowed to enter a contest in which the vast majority of entries were supposed to be amateurs. Like, how's that fair? It's the same with David Fitzgerald. I love David Fitzgerald. It seems like a really cool guy, and his video is great. But it's not only sponsored by Antigrav, but go back through Mellow's video library and you'll notice that David Fitzgerald's already put out tons of other videos. He's an editor in like at least 7 of them. I don't know how many. I can't count them. But, you know, he's a pretty well-established voice in the climbing video production scene. But yeah, what's funny is, you know, at least if I remember correctly, and I can't really verify this because I can't rewatch the videos in the heats, but there was a pretty big correlation between highest grade, most votes, which just, like, if the point of Mellow doing this was to highlight what climbing on doors is supposed to be about, it seems pretty obvious to me that they've accidentally highlighted that it's really all about the size of the stupid number after the stupid name of the stupid rock some stupid person climbed. And that sucks. And don't even get me, like, how utterly ironic is it that the winner is probably going to be the Hamish video because it's Megatron, because it's a V17/9A, despite the fact that the video's thesis is supposedly all about how spiritual climbing is and about the flow state or whatever. Let's not kid ourselves. You know that it would not have even made the finals if it was a video of some random guy sloppily climbing his first V3 in the middle of some extra super duper spiritual temple in the middle of freaking Kathmandu. everyone would have rolled their eyes and gone next, no matter how good that V3 was. Like, it could have been the greatest V3 of all time, even like the nicest thing in the world, greatest climb ever, like consensus. No one would have cared. Nobody would have even said anything about the spirituality of it. The search for lost rocks, man, that's the best video in the finals in my opinion, if we take away the whole "but the grade is hard" thing. But yeah, there's no way it's gonna win. Of course not. It's, why would it? Had the best vibes though. But hey, that was some climbing news. Not much going on in the climbing world in terms of important sends for the moment. It's summer. Just gotta wait for the pros to start heading to Rocklands and all that if you're into bouldering. And we've got the last Bouldering World Cup of the season going on as we speak. I'll, of course, be doing a full recap once the whole thing is over, but be on the lookout for that as it's the return of Janja Garnbret. Should be interesting to see how well or badly she does. But hey, in the meantime, I guess all I can really do is give opinions because there was not a lot in terms of news, so it is what it is. But hey, and as always, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps keep me on my toes and all that. I will absolutely be seeing you guys next week. And in the meantime, go climb some stuff.